Hello, welcome everyone to the American Rocketry Challenge Launchpad Live. We are so excited that you are joining us this evening. Please do answer the initial poll as you come in to let us know how many folks are with you on your end, how many team members you have with you just on the link that you're calling in from. If you would change your name to your first name, last initial, just so we know who's joining us this evening. We're so excited to be greeting our students for our first Launchpad League of the year. This is part of our Launchpad League, workshop series, Launchpad Live, and we are so happy that you're able to join us. We have a few speakers this evening. I'm Caitlin Sullivan, the director of the American Rocketry Challenge. Our senior director is joining us as well, and of course, our guest speaker from U.S. Space Force. All right, I'm so excited to introduce now Jessica Peterson, who is the Senior Director of the American Rocketry Challenge and STEM Engagement at Aerospace Industries Association. Jessica.
Thanks, Caitlin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural Launchpad Live Career Connected Workshop. Very excited to be here with you all. As Caitlin mentioned, my name is Jessica Peterson, and I'm the Senior Director for the American Rocketry Challenge, otherwise known as ARC. So the ARC team really has been working hard kicking off this current season, and we want to take a moment to recognize all of you for your dedication, not just for designing, building, and launching rockets, but also to really deepening your understanding of aerospace and really further exploring STEM careers. So thank you all for being here tonight. So to launch our Career Connected workshop series, we're thrilled to welcome a special ARC partner, the United States Space Force. And tonight's webinar is a unique opportunity to really gain insight into the Space Force's mission and discover the wide range of STEM career paths it offers. So we're incredibly grateful to the Space Force for their continued commitment to inspiring the next generation of STEM leaders through the American Rocketry Challenge. So with that, I'll hand it back to Caitlin to kick off this session. Enjoy the webinar.
All right, thank you so much, Jessica. All right, our guest speaker this evening is Technical Sergeant Auston Ferris from U.S. Space Force. He serves as enlisted and officer accessions recruiter for the 343rd, 347th, and 368th recruiting squadrons. He helps U.S. Space Force to develop recruiting mission strategy, and he oversees training for 240 Guardian recruiters. In a prior role, he provided tactical and strategic level guidance for the agency regarding foreign adversaries' use of space systems capabilities. We are so excited to have you here. Tech Sergeant Ferris, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity to come over and talk to you all. Real quick, before I go ahead and start sharing my screen and talking to you about my presentation, I kind of wanted to get a feeler. Are you guys able, I know some of you might be in groups, but throughout this presentation, I like to make this interactive as much as possible. This is my first time actually doing a virtual presentation, but I still like your guys' interaction. So are you guys able to talk to me? Are you able to go live and chat back? Okay, awesome. So I might get into some areas where I want your participation and to hear your thoughts and your opinions on things that I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. So to go ahead, I'm going to start it off by introducing myself. So originally, I grew up in a small little town, a country little town in southwestern Michigan. So I grew up on a farm. I spent 19 years over there, and I decided, I wanted to get out of there. There wasn't really a whole lot to do. I didn't see myself progressing where I was at, so I joined the Navy. And I joined the Navy because at that time, the Space Force wasn't an option. So I decided that my grandpa was in the Navy during World War II. My dad was in the Navy during Vietnam, and my uncle was in the Navy same era during Vietnam era. So I followed in their footsteps and I joined the Navy. I was in the Navy for 5 years active. I got out. I decided it wasn't very family friendly. I wanted to go in and experience things on the civilian side. But I still wanted to maintain my top secret clearance that the Navy helped to pay for, right? So I got into the Navy Reserves. After doing the Navy Reserves for 6 years, I decided that the reserve life wasn't for me, and I actually enjoyed doing what I did on the active duty side. I just didn't want to do it for the Navy anymore because it wasn't family friendly in my perspective. So I decided to pursue the Air Force at the time because again, the Space Force wasn't an opportunity at that time yet. However, as I was pursuing the Air Force, things actually changed where the Space Force opened up for people who were prior service for the very first time. So I jumped onto that. I jumped on that opportunity, and it has been amazing. It's been a great opportunity for me. My job, my trade is the same thing that I did in the Navy. So I'm a signal intelligence analyst. I did that for the Navy, and I do that for the Space Force. I'm going to get a little bit more into the jobs later, but throughout that time, I've been married. I have 3 kids. We have traveled all over the country. We've lived in, I think it's a little bit over, I think it's been 9 different states that we've lived in. And we've moved in the 15 years that we've been married. We've moved probably 19 times. Now that's a little unusual. That's not what you're usually going to experience in the military, but that has been my experience by jumping around doing a lot of different things. Then in addition to that, I've also been to 14 different countries. So I've definitely been able to travel around the world and experience things that I wanted to do, right? So moving forward, I'm going to be talking about the Space Force. So like I mentioned, I jumped from the Navy, got into the Space Force. I originally was signal intelligence, and that's still what I'm doing. But I've switched my role into recruiting now. So my job is to that we're calling it talent scout. So I don't necessarily recruit because we have so many people who want to come and join the military or specifically the Space Force. But my job is to go out there and find the best people who want to join, not necessarily just people. So throughout this overview, I'm going to be talking to you on the why, the what's, the hows, and the who's about why the Space Force is a thing, right? So starting with the why. So this is where I kind of want to get your guys' interaction. I'm going to give you guys maybe 20, 30 seconds to talk amongst your groups or to think about it. But why do you feel that space is important? So why is it important to our economy? Why is it important to our national defense? Or whatever it is that you think. I'm going to give you 20 seconds of silence, and then I'm going to ask for your feedback. Okay, I think that's probably good. Now, on my end, the only thing that I can see is my presentation. So hopefully you guys can just kind of unmute yourself if you want to, and maybe share what you think is the importance of space. I thought I heard somebody maybe chiming in. No takers?
I think that space is important for modern and everyday life because satellites direct information to Earth, for example, in GPS and broadcasting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. GPS and broadcasting are so important. And we're going to get into that here in a second. And that is something GPS is more important than people realize. And I want to say that's a very big thing. And people think about it as just being navigation, but it's so much more than navigation. So what else? Anybody else have any thoughts?
So us two have figured that it's really good for economic growth and innovation since there's so many resources out there for different types of industries, mostly industrial.
Yeah, 100%. Our economy has grown so much thanks to space, and absolutely the industrial aspect of it is a big portion of that. Okay. Any other thoughts before I move on?
I think that, I mean, there's space is important. It's the reason why we have the U.S. Space Force. Partially just like you said, like national security and defense. It's nice to be able to know what's going on around from a bird's eye view.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. National security and defense is absolutely crucial, and space is a big part of that. And again, we're going to be talking to that too. I really like talking to you guys because I know that you guys actually care about space. This is why you're part of this organization, right? Because you guys want to pursue, you have a big interest, and you want to make it part of your future. And I think that's really awesome. So let's dive into this a little bit more on, let's start with the modern day, everyday way of life depends on space. So we talked about how GPS was important more than just navigation earlier, right? So do you guys know the components to GPS? So there's something called PNT, and I'm not going to get into all of this, but essentially you obviously know that GPS allows you to get maps that allow you to travel around. You can pull up your phone and open up Google Maps or whatever it might be. But there's also a timing component it may be small. You might think of it as being a small background component, but it actually runs so much of our computers. That timing component, if it's taken out, computers don't work anymore. So on a hypothetical scenario, if we lost all of GPS, and we can no longer communicate with it, things are going to go down like you're not going to be able to go to the bank, pull out cash anymore. You're not going to be able to go to the bank account, or sorry, to the gas station just to get gas. And it doesn't matter if you have cash on hand, you can't buy the gas because the pump is not going to be working, right? And so the electric grid is going to be compromised. Communication, obviously, not based off of GPS, but communication is going to be compromised if space is deteriorated, right, or taken down. So space is very important for our way of life to be able to do the things that we do. And you can start to think in your mind like, okay, well, if I didn't have navigation, if I didn't have the ability to travel around using my car because I can't get gas, if I can't get money out of the store, if nobody else can travel around, so that means groceries, food is not getting over to the grocery store, how bad this stuff can get real quickly. So then national security, that's another thing, right? GPS is so crucial to national security. So think about the Navy. Navy relies off of GPS in order to navigate around the ocean. You take out GPS, those ships can't navigate around the ocean anymore. You take out GPS, the airplanes can't navigate. Now they have backup systems, but they highly rely off of, specifically talking about aircraft, they highly rely off of GPS in order for the aircraft to be able to maneuver around. You get rid of GPS, then their backup systems are good up to a certain extent where they actually become faulty and they give false readings. So they rely off the GPS to self-correct themselves, and that doesn't work without it, right? Guided rocket missiles, those aren't going to be any good anymore. So you can see that ships, airplanes, guided rocket missiles are going to be giant paperweights that you can't do anything with. So our military is going to be compromised. Economic growth, obviously, so much has happened over the last, really since the last decade, I would say since about 2011, where so much has become reliant off of space. Our economy has become so reliant off of space, and we have been able to grow so much because of it. And scientific and technological advancements, same thing. Space is intertwined, ingrained in our society. So the need for a sixth branch. So just so you guys understand, everything that I've talked about before on space being so important didn't just come about with the advent of the Space Force, right? A lot of what we do in the Space Force was already being done in the Air Force. So what are your guys' thoughts on why we needed a sixth branch? Do you guys have any thoughts on that? And you're welcome to unmute if you want.
Repeat
Okay.
the question, please.
Oh, yes, sorry. So with the fact that everything that we used to do, or everything that the Space Force does now, was actually being done with the Air Force before, Why do you think it was important that we separated from the Air Force and we actually created our own 6th branch? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Because we're using more technology nowadays, and if a war happens, it's probably going to be through technology.
Yeah, absolutely. The more technology is so important, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later on. I'm going to demonstrate how reliant we've become off of satellites and the technology through it. But absolutely. So here's another thing that if you think about back in during World War II, they actually did not have an Air Force, right? They had the Army Air Corps. After World War II, you started realizing that we needed to put a little bit more effort and focus on the air superiority in itself. The Army wasn't necessarily giving it the attention that the air needed, right? So we decided we better go ahead and chop off the air component of the Army and make the Air Force, and then the Army can deal with the land portion. And the same thing happened to the Space Force, where the Air Force was handling the space component of it. They had the Space Command, and they were doing a great job. But then back in 2001, when you had the 9/11, and we as a country started focusing so much on anti-terrorism efforts that we kind of started losing focus on the space industry or the space platform. And so other countries started catching up. And we decided, like, wait, we actually need to put a little bit more effort into space. And Air Force is doing great and amazing things, but they're not necessarily putting that effort into space. So let's go ahead and chop it off, and we need to make the Space Force so that we can actually be dedicated to a branch dedicated to solely focusing on space superiority. So talking about the technology part, space has become important for us, but it's also become important for the entire world. So I'm going to get into the numbers here. Now, there's no cool music with this. It is on my side. I'm going to hear it, but apparently I can't share that music with you guys. So pay attention as you're watching this. You can kind of see that as it goes through the years, how quickly we start to increase and gain more satellites up in space. Now, this is not just for the United States. This is worldwide. So this is going to be including the United States, but it's also going to include Russia, China, other countries, be it the UK or North Korea. I mean, whatever else, right? They're going to be putting satellites up in space because we're all trying to take advantage of this kind of free space that that nobody really controls, and it's very advantageous for you. So I don't know if you guys can kind of hear it or see it. You can't hear it. But during that early times of the 2000s, we actually started slowing down just a little bit. The ticking started slowing down. But then you can see how quickly it's ramping up right now. So that is actually an incorrect number because that was earlier in 2005 or 2025, sorry. Now we're closer to over 15,000. So to give you a quick summary in the history, back in 2019, I believe it was, that we had right around 2,800 satellites. Now that's across the world, right? That's not just ours, but that's China, that's Russia, and that's everybody else, right? But then moving forward, 2022, we had right around 4,800 satellites. So just 3 years later, we went from 2,800 to whatever I said, 4,800. Moving 3 years later, right, to where we are today, from 2022, we're now at over 15,000 satellites. Projection is that in 5 years' time, so by 2030, there's going to be 60 to 100,000 satellites around the Earth. And when I'm saying that, we're talking about active satellites, we're not talking about inactive satellites. So we can see how space is becoming very competitive, but it's also becoming very congested. So not only can you see that we're going to be up to 100,000 satellites, but as of right now, over 15,000, but those are the active satellites. We haven't even talked about all the debris because of all the satellites become inactive, all the junk that's up in space, all the natural like little rocks and stuff that's up in space. It's not all man-made. There are little pieces of debris going around the Earth, and so everybody's trying to take advantage and become the dominant presence in space. So this is actually not a slide that I created. I kind of stole it from other slides, but I think it's kind of interesting, and it highlights the idea that military branches use aircrafts because we need to have the advantage of like aerial advantage, the high ground, right? So the higher up you go, the better you are able to take control of the situation. And it's actually not completely true here, where it says the Space Force does not operate aircraft. We do actually have. There is an aircraft that we have, the X-37 Bravo. And it's funny, it's really cool. It's top secret and everything, right? So I don't even know necessarily what the missions of it are for, because it's not my need to know. But it is public that it's a thing. But it was classified, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I understand, it was classified. Nobody was able to know about it. However, amateur astronomers saw it up in space through telescopes. And so, I mean, it's just up there in space. You can't necessarily hide it. So they are the ones who made it so that fact that we had to release that. So I think it's cool how awesome amateur astronomers are and how much they can actually accomplish and do. They love tracking satellites and monitoring all that kind of stuff. So to kind of recap real quick, space is heavily ingrained in everything it is that we do on a day-to-day basis, both on the civilian side and on the military side. So let's go ahead and get into the how and what. So our mission is to secure our nation's interest in, from, and to space. So I'm not going to ask this question, which is what I was going to do, but in basically meaning all the satellites, everything that's up in space from means that we're going to be sending stuff from space down here. Communication, right? Communication goes back and forth to space. Our rockets that go up there, we need to make sure all that stays safe and that we're not going to have any issues with other countries kind of degrading our capabilities or trying to block us from sending things back and forth. So that's our purpose, not just for us, but for our allies. We want our allies to be able to take full advantage of space as well. And it's not just for our allies, right? But it's also for the commercial sector as well. We want to make sure that the commercial sector has free use. People don't really think about this, but that's kind of what we did in the Navy. When I was in the Navy, we would often, like, one of my missions was go over to the Horn of Africa. Our ship went to the Horn of Africa and made sure that pirates weren't attacking all the commercial ships over there, and we made sure that people had free passage to trade their goods. And we want to do the same thing for the Space Force up in space. Make sure the satellites have free passage to be able to go about and do their business that they need to do. So here are some ways that we do it. We have missile warning defense capabilities, command and control, cyber and satellite control network. So there are various different ways that we go about making sure that space is safe. So the who do we have in the Space Force? You can kind of see the yellow and the white. The yellow actually has that little white to the top. That's because the white is officers. The yellow is enlisted. So enlisted, we have those 3 job opportunities. The white has all 5 job opportunities, the officers. So on the enlisted side, we have the cyber, we have the space system operators, and we have intel. So cyber is kind of self-explanatory, and we can get into that if you want to ask some questions. On the space system operator side, they are the ones who kind of control. They do the control the satellites, maneuvering them around. They do the missile warning capabilities. Intel, I'm on the intel side, so I know that one a little bit better. Intel, I don't necessarily focus on what it is that we can do, even though I do know it fairly well. But I focus more on what it is that our adversaries can do. I want to pay attention. Are they able to do this? Are they not able to do this? Do they want to do this? What do they want to do to us? So I focus on those kind of aspects on the intel side. And basically anything they can do, I should be able to try to figure out what it is. On the acquisition side, on the engineering side, officers only. Acquisition deals a lot with contractors. So we have officers who interact with the contractors to develop and build these capabilities that we want. Engineers help to design them as well. So I think that kind of got me to the 20-minute mark. So this is kind of a little slide. Well, I want you guys to know that you can ask any questions that you have. I'm more than happy to answer them to the best of my capability. If you are interested in learning more about the Space Force, maybe you're getting to that point that you want to maybe progress with it, whether you're a junior or a senior, I will let you know if you are interested in the Space Force. It's a great opportunity, whether you want to treat it as a stepping stone to get to a different career like NASA or whatnot, or you want to get into the Space Force because you love the idea of the Space Force and retire maybe and make it a career. Either way is great. However, it is very competitive to get in, and it's going to take you probably 8 to 9 months minimally. Feel free to reach out to me. You can scan my code over here. That'll get you to my Instagram. You can ask me questions on Instagram. I can connect you with a recruiter in your area. I didn't want to put also there is the Space Force Instagram over there as well, but I didn't want to necessarily put a whole bunch of different people that you can connect with, because depending on where you're living is depending on who you're going to connect with. You're not going to go through me, right? So if you want to join, I'm going to help you out to answer questions, and then I'm going to direct you over to the person that you would communicate with. You would talk to them, and they're going to be the ones to help you join. But with that said, I think it's question time.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate the presentation. We have 3 students who submitted questions ahead of time. They're going to ask theirs. I'm going to call on them, and then we're going to open it up to anyone to ask questions. So our first question is from team 0017. Come on off mute, ask your questions, and tell us who you are, where you're calling in from.
My name is Zixuan, and my question is, what STEM education or training pathway would best complements my rocketry experience if I want to pursue a career in the USSF?
Okay, so make sure I understood that. What kind of experience through the rocketry would help you best with the Space Force? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So there is a lot that really goes into this. So with your rocketry experience, you're going to learn a lot about the orbits, I assume. You're going to learn a lot about the mechanics of the rockets, along with the payloads in the rockets that you can put in there. All of that is super important. And I'm going to speak to that more so on the intel side, because I think that it's very important that we understand that on the intel side, I need to know all those little details so that when I'm going through all the information and trying to identify what it is that our adversaries can do, having that foundation and having that understanding on the on how a rocket works, how what orbits that they're trying to achieve, because based off of the orbits, then they are able to do certain things. They have certain capabilities based off of certain orbits, right? And based off of a lot of different factors. So understanding the type of fuel that they use is also important, right? Understanding it helps me to paint a picture of what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve, and what they could possibly do to us in the future. So I think it's very important on the intel side so that we can get a better picture on what the adversaries are doing. Aside from that, just having that foundation, if you wanted to go to the officer route, right, and you wanted to get into the engineering, or you wanted to go into acquisition, to be able to understand that knowledge so that you can communicate your needs to our contractors is super important. To be able to tell them, hey, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to accomplish, this is the way I think it could best happen. All of that. Hopefully that makes sense. It's super relevant to understand how rockets work, how what their orbits are, what they can achieve, the fuel that they use, the satellites, the payloads that they can carry, right? All of that is very relevant to the Space Force. Hopefully that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Second question, Keanu, if you're on, you had submitted a question ahead of time. I reminded you in the chat, but otherwise you're welcome to come off mute, ask a question, that one or any question. Let's see if Keanu is there. No, maybe not. Okay, we'll go on to our third one and then we'll open it up to everyone. Mickey Wen, you had submitted a question and I reminded you in the chat. You can ask that one or ask another question.
I have a question about the technologies. What technologies will we expect from ARC that will better prepare us for better technologies in the future? Kind of made this sense, to be honest.
Yeah, so what technologies can you expect there are that will better help you in the future for technologies moving forward? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think this kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about before, is that by understanding how the fundamentals work right now, understanding the logistics, the components of a rocket will better help you to understand how you can develop things moving forward in the future. Whether you're on the officer side and you're trying to develop it, or whether you're on the enlisted side or officer side, doesn't matter. And you need to do the intelligence of identifying what it is that they're doing, what the adversaries are doing. So if you can have that foundation, if you can, even if it's the basic foundation, right? A basic foundation, I can tell you, I told you before that I grew up on a farm in the country, right? I didn't have this foundation. So when I came over to the Space Force, I came over because I thought the Space Force was cool. I didn't come over because I had a technical knowledge. But let me tell you, there was a hurdle behind me trying to catch up and identifying what it is that we needed. And I had the technical knowledge because of the Navy on how to do the intel, right? So I was good at the intel portion, but learning space, man, it was a pain. But if you're able to come in already with that understanding on what these different orbits are, what the different components of a rocket are, what the technology that's used currently, it'll help you to develop and keep up with that later on. I like to think of it a lot like those who were early on in the computer stage, right? My dad, he didn't care about computers. He didn't develop computers. And so looking back now, he struggles with them. Or compare that to other people who back in the 1970s or 80s, when computers were first becoming a thing and they were kind of a fad, those who decided to stick with it and learn about the components, the technology that was coming out, and it was innovative at the time, even though that it was maybe not always going to be the most advanced piece of equipment at the time or moving forward, they learned about it. And as they were able to keep up with it, they became super successful because they knew how it all worked. And if you guys can do the same thing, like I told you, 100,000 satellites up in space in 5 years from now, like if you guys can keep up with the technology, you are going to be so far and above your peers and everybody else moving forward, right? So I think it's super important. Hopefully that kind of answers the question.
All right, great. We'll open it up for questions then if you want to put a question in the chat or raise your hand or come off mute. Anyone's welcome.
Okay, so I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What other fields does the Space Force work in besides defense?
So what other fields does the Space Force work in besides defense?
Yes.
Okay, so that's actually a great question. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, but there's a lot of debris up in space, right? Lots of stuff going on. So over 15,000 active satellites, thousands more inactive satellites. I think this is probably way inaccurate right now, but the last I heard probably 2 years ago, I think there was about 40,000 pieces of objects, such debris up in space that we're actively monitoring at any given time. Super important to identify where those pieces of junk or just satellites or whatever it is, where they are. We constantly are interacting, aside from the defensive part, we're constantly interacting with other major space industries, whether it be NASA, SpaceX, Blue Origin, ULA, right? When you do a rocket launch, you need to know where that debris is so that you don't hit it with the rocket going up. When you're maneuvering your satellites, you need to make sure you know where the debris is so that you don't hit it when you're maneuvering the satellite. And we make sure that we coordinate with NASA so that they know where that debris is, right? Because we're the ones monitoring it. We need to make sure that they're aware of it. So we work with all the other space industries to kind of coordinate all of that. We also coordinate to make sure that space is being utilized the way that it should be. So if somebody's occupying a sector of space that should otherwise be going to France or India or Spain or whoever it is, right? If their satellites should be occupying that, but somebody else's, we need to identify, well, why is that the case? And try to work through that kind of stuff, right? So it's not all self-defense. I mean, that's a big portion of it. That's why it's a military branch, but we interact with everybody on a much more like intimate level than other branches do, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much. We have one hand raised, and then we'll go to Ian. I saw that you just went off on mute, so we'll go to you after that. We have some ARC greatness in the room. Mac, I see you raising your hand. Mac was on the first place American Rocketry Challenge team this year. I'm going to embarrass him a little bit. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Max Chung. I'm from New Jersey, and I'm really interested in getting more involved in like the aerospace industry in my future. So I was wondering, how do you suggest we reach out to professionals in the aerospace industry and make connections, especially with people like in the Space Force?
Yeah, so great question. One way you can start by is joining my Instagram page, right? Start following me. So if you have any questions, and also that's a silly one. I'm not the best at social media. We do it because we have to, but also because we want to be able to be a source of a contact so people can reach out to us and ask those questions. But aside from that, you want to be able to go, I don't know, you're probably in high school, I believe, Mac, and you'll want to start going onto LinkedIn. Start following the people that you admire, whether it be Elon Musk or whoever it may be, right? Find people who are in the Space Force. I can tell you, if you follow me on Instagram, you're going to see that I'm following other people, and a good lot of them are in the Space Force, right? You should be able to identify it. There's not that many. Reach out to them, ask them questions. LinkedIn is a great place for that specifically. Find people who are in NASA, find people who are in SpaceX, find people who are in the Space Force. Reach out to them there. I can tell you, most people are very receptive, especially for those who are up and coming and interested in the field. They're very receptive to answering questions and helping you to get to that point that you want to. We want to be there and help you out. Hopefully that kind of helps that out as well, answers that question.
Yeah, thank you.
Social media is your best friend when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? Find those people. They're all out there and they want to talk to you.
All right, we're going to take two last questions. One was Ian, if you're still there, and then Elizabeth will be our last question.
No, we were just about to say thank you for answering our question.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Wonderful. All right, Elizabeth, you're our last question of the session then.
How does AI relate to the Space Force?
So that's a great question. And I don't necessarily have the best answer for you because I don't necessarily use AI myself in the intelligence field for the things that I did, right? But AI is becoming more and more important. So I'm making an assumption here that all the debris that we're following, you can't necessarily, so debris, things in space, you can do two different things. You can know where it was, you can know where it will be, but you can never know where it is, right? So AI can also help you to track where this stuff is at because you can't necessarily have your eyes on it at all time. So AI is very important, I would assume, for making sure that you can track these thousands and thousands of pieces of debris. But I myself don't necessarily use AI on the Intel world, and I wish I could give you a better answer to that. I wish I had my friend who was specifically studying AI and how it related to the military. But in the future, I can almost guarantee you, because I can think about on my side, on the Intel side, how AI would be very helpful. But it's not necessarily there just yet on the top secret network that I utilize.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Drew, I see that your hand is raised. We're going to move on to the next portion, but I bet Tech Sergeant Ferris is going to be in and out of some of the breakout rooms, and it sounds like you can certainly send him questions afterwards as well if you don't get a chance today. So, fueled up. Now you're fueled up with all of this information. You've learned about the inner workings of U.S. Space Force and what they're looking for in future Guardians, what opportunities they have. So we want to know how you would apply the things that you learned today to your rocketry endeavors. What elements of what U.S. Space Force does do you think are also important in your American Rocketry Challenge? So when you go into the breakout rooms, the first thing that you'll do is introduce yourself, and then you'll answer this question. And just to get everything started, once you get into your breakout room, the team with the lowest team number will go first, just to get it started. All right. Looks like we've got everyone back together. So thank you so much for coming back. Hope you had a chance to get to know another team or two, somebody else out there who loves the same thing that you do. We have just a few minutes left if anyone has burning questions for Tech Sergeant Ferris. And I think Dwayne is raising his hand. He has a question, if you wouldn't mind answering just a couple more before we go.
Absolutely.
Okay, Dwayne.
What are the other aspects or more advanced aspects of engineering in the Space Force other than ARC?
Boy, that's a good question that I can't necessarily speak to too well. So I am a recruiter, obviously, and I am recruiting for the enlisted and the officer side. But what it is that the Space Force or the engineers do on the Space Force, I don't want to give you some false representation because I'm not an engineer myself. I'm an intel analyst. And I wish I had somebody here who actually did that. But really what they're going to be doing is they're going to be working with the contractors and whoever the contractor is, right? They're going to be working with them to develop the payloads that we need for the capabilities that we desire, right? So whatever it is that we're looking to be able to do up in space, the engineer is going to help, and they're going to go back and forth, and the contractors are going to throw out a design, and the engineer, knowing what he knows, is going to be able to go in there and say, hey, actually, we're going to need to tweak this, we're going to need to tweak that, so that it can perform like the way that we want to. And they, because they have the technical knowledge, they can work closer with those developers to build the product that we want, right? So hopefully that kind of helps out.
Great. And then we have time for, let's do two more questions. Drew, and then Ryan, you'll be next.
Hello. I wanted to ask that do you need like a specific degree to go to the USSF? Because I don't think you need a degree, right? Right?
That is a great question. And the answer is no, you do not need a degree in order to come into the Space Force. And this is such a question that I'm passionate about, and I really would dive really deep into it, but it's going to take a long time to explain. And I want to get to other people's questions. So short answer is no, you don't need one. With that said, having a degree is great. And if you want to get a degree, I think it's great to go to school and get a degree in what it is that you want to. But unless you're going to be getting a full ride scholarship to wherever it is that you're going, I highly encourage that you consider coming into the Space Force so that you can get your degree for free. So you're still going to get the degree. You get exactly the degree that you want, and then you get it for free, and then you get out and do whatever you want on the outside. You go work for NASA, SpaceX, or whatever it is that you're looking to do, or you apply to become an officer and utilize that space industry, aerospace engineering degree, or whatever it is that you might have, right, or want to do. But it's free. That's the important part, is that it's free in the military. So, I'm not even talking about post 9/11, which you can utilize after you get out of the military. I'm talking about in the military. There's no reason you can't get a bachelor's degree for free. And how?
I see. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
All right, and Ryan is going to ask our last question of the evening. Ryan, you'd put one in the chat. I think that's a great question.
Hello? Is
Yeah.
my mic working? Okay. I'm not sure if this information is confidential, but do you know how advanced other countries' space forces are? since in the news, I'm only seeing launches about like Blue Origin or SpaceX and nothing about China or Russia.
Sorry, that's top secret.
Oh, my
I'm
bad.
just kidding. I'm kidding. No, we can talk about it. So yeah, they are progressing, right? In many aspects, they're better than us in certain ways. So let's talk about China, for instance. China has just demonstrated refueling capabilities out in geo orbit. Do you guys know what geo orbit is? Like, do you understand what this means? No. Okay, great. So geo just means really far out there, right? They're not so close to Earth. Low Earth orbit, that LEO would be closer to Earth. Geo is really far. And so they are able to take a satellite, send it out into geo, refuel the satellite, so they connect them together. And that is something that they've demonstrated that they can do. And guess what? We can't do that. Nobody else can do that. They're the first ones to be able to do that. In addition to that, they have also demonstrated that they have satellite capability, and this used to be classified, but it's no longer classified, so we can talk about it. They have satellites that have robotic arms that can go up there and grab a satellite and take it out to wherever it needs to. So specifically, they have demonstrated that they can grab a satellite, their own satellite, and take it out to the satellite graveyard. If you don't understand what that means, basically it means that it's a place out in space where we've designated that these are where all the dead satellites go out to. But the point is that they can take a satellite and they can move it. And that is potentially dangerous if they want to maybe grab something other than their own satellites. And they take it out of our orbit where we need it and you can't use it anymore. So absolutely, other countries are growing. India, their space program has become so amazing. It's just, yeah, we're not the only ones in space. Other countries do it too, and they're great with it.
Okay, thanks. That
Yeah.
sounded really
Right.
cool.
Well, it sounds like we are most definitely in need in the United States of some amazing smarts and determination that we have here on the call to really compete with the rest of the world. Tech Sergeant Ferris, thank you so much. We so appreciate it. Let's give a little round of applause for Tech Sergeant Ferris for joining us. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who's out there calling in. Would love for you to complete a little survey for us afterwards. My colleague is going to drop the link in the chat so that you can get to that. And we'll also email it to you afterwards. So if you're on a phone or something like that, no worries. All right. Well, thank you everyone. We look forward to seeing you at the next Launchpad League. And that's it for this evening. We'll see you soon.